Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean. It's a post-fight video for the Callum Smith Canelo Alvarez fight from last night. We'll start off by saying it was a top quality performance from Canelo. Really, really good. Callum Smith, I think, did as much as he did, as well as he could. He was just outclassed in there. The first half of the fight was competitive. I think Callum Smith did his best to try to maintain the reach advantage as much as possible. The feints were working quite nicely for him. Like when Canelo would get too close, he'd just give him a little feint. That would give him, Canelo would bite, he'd give him a bit of space to, keep it at that range again. But, when it got into the second half of the fight, Canelo really started taking over and just beat him up, really. I think that Callum Smith did quite well at varying up his attack. I think he was definitely a bit of a deterrent for Canelo. He wasn't just walking him down, taking the piss like he was later on in the fight. I just think that the defence, Canelo's defence was first class. I mean, people say, he should have kept it at range, and he should it's that easy. Maybe he could have done it slightly better, and he did. His footwork could have been slightly better, maybe, in terms of letting Canelo get him onto the ropes too much. But it's much easier said than done when you've got someone coming forward like that who's just an absolute tank with real good defence. That was the best defence I think I've seen from Canelo, really. Maybe he looked good at times, because people are going to say Callum Smith was not that great in it, but he was pretty good. I mean, he was throwing good punch, varying up. It wasn't just one jab left. He was mixing it up, getting good uppercuts in there, body shots, from range. It wasn't just one-dimensional, the attack that Callum Smith was doing, and he managed to just bit by bit just wear him down, just constant pressure. I say that the defence, where he's basically coming forward, he's got his chin tucked in nicely, he's got strong guard, good upper body movement, good head movement, and he's just constantly putting that pressure on you. When he does take a punch, he takes it well. You're kind of having to get punch around the guard or through the guard. He's got strong hands with that guard as well. And if you're just literally having to jab someone in the forehead all night, it's not, that's not going to do much. It's not going to do much for your hand. When Callum Smith was really struggling to find gaps to land his punches, when he was actually quite creative with them, trying to get some good uppercuts in, hooks, just trying to fight around the guard, little gaps here, but it's very difficult because he was blocking well the hands, head movement, upper body, his elbows, protecting his body very well. It was quite being small, worked as a sort of disadvantage to Callum Smith in that sense of just looking for a place to actually land a decent punch. So he couldn't really land that much on him. Canelo was just because when Callum Smith would get up on the ropes and he'd be trying to protect himself, good. I mean, he showed a good defence himself, Callum Smith, and a very good chin, good durability. But he even fucked his arm up, didn't he? Because they're saying he's sort of done damage to his bicep now. When he was covering up, kind of bang, just launching big punches in on the ropes. Just doing his arms in, his shoulders, his elbow, everything, just real punishing with every shot. So yeah, I was extremely impressed by Canelo in that fight. I just think to go up there. Now, as I said before the fight, we don't really know who. Well, we say he's definitely the best at that weight now. But in terms of the competitors, you had him, Saunders, Plant, and Benavidez. None of them have fought each other. They're all as sort of, depending on who you speak to, they're all as sort of credible as each other, aren't they? So Callum Smith, I think, looked quite good. Now, I don't know what that's going to do, because he did take a lot of punishment in that fight. Fair play to him for hanging on in there till the end. He was in survival mode by the end of it, there's no question. I mean, by the I'm not really sure by what round, but at least the last few rounds, I think he'd given up on the idea of trying to win. It's just this bloke's too good, too strong, his defence is too tight, I'm worn down, I'm not going to win this, I just want to hear the final bell, and that's what he did. So I don't know how much damage that would do to him, but I'd definitely like to see him in there against Benavidez, Plant, Saunders, these other top super middleweights. As for Canelo, I think the next fight probably will be Billy Joe Saunders. I don't really see the PBC letting Caleb Plant or Benavidez fight Canelo. Maybe in the future, but I think it's unlikely, to be honest. out of those three, I really like the Benavidez fight. I think that's to me, he really does look good. Don't think he's good enough to beat Canelo, but he definitely looks like that would be a very interesting fight. But as I say, I just don't think the PBC are going to want to put any of their fighters in with Canelo, not the top fighters anyway. Billy Joe Saunders, on the other hand, they'd already signed the fight. It was going to happen. Then obviously the pandemic happened. Worked with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's like working quite closely with Canelo now, so that seems like an obvious fight to make, and that's an interesting one. And if it happened a few years ago, I would have probably picked Saunders to beat him. But as of right now, Canelo's just looking like he really is looking unstoppable. I just think with Saunders' style, it's going to be definitely quite interesting because he's a lot more mobile than Callum Smith. He's a lot sharper, and he's got very good reflexes, and he's going to be able to, maybe make Canelo miss and make it a bit more tricky for him. But I just don't think he's got enough offense really to put a dent in Canelo or to win a points decision, because Canelo, even without because you can say about the judges had in the past, which is obviously true, we know that, but that was a very dominant performance against Callum Smith. I wasn't scoring the rounds, but he basically won the vast majority of the rounds against a good, solid champion. So you'd think, realistically, it's going to be very hard work for Billy Joe Saunders to beat him, because he's not going to obviously knock him out, is he? Anything can happen, but it's extremely unlikely. So yeah, that would be I think the next fight that we made. Billy Joe Saunders is obviously going to have to really rise to the occasion, which I think potentially he can do. Well, I'm sure he can do, at least to the extent of performing as well as he can do. But the question is whether that's good enough to beat Canelo. It's going to be interesting. But I, for one, am quite interested to see that fight. And if he beats fucking Billy Joe Saunders as well, then we're going to have to send like Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua after him, because he's just taking the piss now, Canelo. I don't know how many UK fighters he's beaten, but enough. So yeah, massive performer, massive credit to him. I was extremely impressed. So let me know what you lot think. Thank you very much for watching.